Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Firefighters Podcast, where we seek to develop, inspire, and motivate the world of the emergency services operator through a series of wide-ranging conversations. Now, before we go any further, just hit that rate, follow, or subscribe button on whatever platform you're listening to. It's a key performance indicator for us and helps us reach even more people. Now, here's what we've got for you today.
16% of the firefighters that took part in the survey said they believe in the badge of honour culture. They think dirty gear is a badge of honour. 16% of 10,000 firefighters. That's a lot. Firefighters are less likely to take safety precautions seriously, I think, if it didn't lead to an immediate consequence. Firefighters' mortality rate is 1.6 times higher than the general public. Deaths from heart attacks are 5 times the rate of the general public, and 3 times the rate from strokes. Is huge. I mean, I know firefighters that have heart attacks in the 40s. If you are in these positions, you are somebody that should be setting the example for new people coming into the job. So really, that stereotype needs to be broken, really, because the people that are in the positions of authority, they're the ones that should be setting the example.
This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Gore-Tex Professional Fabrics. Now, we all know the working environment of a firefighter is filled with challenges. We face serious risks on the job, such as heat exhaustion, burns, physical and mental stress, and we frequently come into contact with high levels of toxic chemicals. Now, I have been wearing Gore-Tex for nearly 2 decades on the front line, working in hostile environments, tackling challenging incidents from firefighting to water incidents and in urban search and rescue environments. Gore-Tex have a well-earned reputation for protecting professionals in the fire and emergency services through their family of highly innovative, waterproof, breathable moisture barriers that exceeds global performance standards and are trusted worldwide. Gore-Tex, going further together. Hey folks, before we get into today's episode, just wanted to introduce you once again to our mobile application, Drillbook. Now, if you listen to the podcast, you're probably the sort of person that likes to develop themselves. Now, Drillbook is built to be the home of training ideas for drill grounds all across the world. It's a library of content built by firefighters for firefighters. It's for training ideas, it's for incident debriefs, radio messages. We've got if code templates in there, knots and lines, quick reference guides, interview questions, answers, and guidance. So go in there, check it out. You want to develop yourself. If you're looking to develop a firefighter on your station, head into the App Store or click the notes in the podcast links below.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Right. You can't see me, can you?
No.
Right, hang on. Wait, there we go.
Can you see me?
Yes, and I can
Can you
hear
hear me?
Yeah.
It's almost like we know what we're doing.
Mate, I'm not good with this stuff.
How the hell are you, brother?
I'm good, mate. How are you?
Mate, I am so freaking excited about having you on because I was just looking back. We were chatting before we came on, as we always do, and you were episode 69. So this is March 6th, 2021, which is over 2 years ago, which really sort of blows my mind about A, how far the podcast has gone, but B, we were saying before we came on how you are one of those wonderful people that I've been able to connect with through the podcast who is kind of out there championing going down the rabbit holes of one of these 50 rabbit holes or more that kind of sit before us in the emergency services, the fire and rescue service. So even though we were just having a glance and it's had multiple thousands of kind of downloads, I thought maybe we should start with a quick whistle stop elevator pitch of who is James Meredith and how you find yourself spending a Sunday morning with Pete Wakefield, I suppose.
Yeah, I guess you say about the different various rabbit holes. Absolutely. I guess that's just the one. This is just the one that I have happened to sort of stumble down, if you like. I think I was sort of first made aware of the issue around contaminants and cancer in the fire service. It's a few years ago now. I mean, I remember when I first joined in 2010, and there was a firefighter at the time that had recently died of cancer, and we did like a 10K run, like for a bit of fundraising, sort of in his memory and everything. So I was kind of made aware of it sort of straight away, but I didn't make that connection straight away. It was only a few years.
What cancer was it you had? Sorry,
it was stomach cancer.
Okay.
So I don't know sort of the statistics around that particular type of cancer, but it was a few years later that I read an article in the FBU magazine. I think it was either by or featuring a guy called Steve Burns from Hampshire, and he put this article out in the FBU magazine, and it was about the cancer that he'd sort of been diagnosed with and the treatments he'd had, and he was sort of urging other firefighters to be aware of it. And I guess it was probably around 2014, 2015, something like that. And I think my kind of interest just grew from there, and I sort of realised the things that we weren't doing, and I started trying to make an effort to do these things. I know of other firefighters that have had cancer, that have cancer, and I think it's more prevalent in retired firefighters, but it is becoming more prevalent in younger firefighters just because of the type
it's
of
one of those
exposure.
things. I always think of it as correlation or causation, because like you say, even when we joined 10 15 years ago, and then even people 30 years ago, we knew of people that had cancer, but then again, everybody in society was getting more kind of cancer, and we were blaming food and sweets and what we're eating and what we're drinking, and maybe if you're smoking. But then it's like, as you see more and more people in the emergency services, and then as you filter that down further and look at firefighters, and we'll get onto some of the numbers and stuff in a little bit. But like I say, when I always zoom out, it's that difference between correlation and causation. It throws my mind back to when I used to work in industry, and we'd look at, are these things happening independently, or is it just correlation because they're in the same place, in the same time, in the same whatever, or is there a causation link between the two, which I think is what we're now, not what I think, is what's we're looking down the barrel of that gun, really.
Yeah, definitely. Like you say, it affects everybody in and out of industry, in and out of our job. I think that the interesting things that have come out of the studies that have been done is the rates at which we are sort of experiencing these diagnoses. I think out of the UCLAN report that came out, I think off the top of my head, I read a figure, and it said firefighters between the ages of 35 and 39 are being diagnosed with cancer at a rate of 323% more than the general public, which is massive, really. And 35 to 39, I've just dropped into that bracket. So it does make you think, and it's all. And it says firefighters that have been in 15 years or longer are twice as likely to be diagnosed with cancer than firefighters that haven't been in that length of time.
Yeah.
So that's sort of an increase even further for people as they get further into their careers.
Also, depending on when they're joining. I mean, the hope is that we obviously, because we're going to do a tremendous amount of recruitment and stuff across the UK Fire and Rescue Services now, which is why I was so excited to have you on, because, and this is kind of the overarching theme of today's episode, I suppose, is that if we can embed some of the behaviors, some of the tactics, some of the strategies, some of the layouts, some of the behaviors, certainly, that we now know to be making a positive change, because some of it has to be a procedural change, some of it has to be a structural change, but a lot of the low-hanging fruit lies within that behavioral bracket. And you've kind of, I know I've got a bit of a document we're going to work from today, or a document that explodes into 10 other documents. So it's like, there's like a buffet of information that we've got to go through today, from studies to reports to plans to just some of the great work that's been done around there that people can utilize. But before we jump into that, I'd be remiss if we didn't actually obviously mention Stoke Vent. I apologize for sort of interrupting you, but your passion then manifested itself into what is now a real go-to resource for people.
Yeah, that's that's great to hear you say that. It started initially as a lockdown project. I broke my ankle about a week before we went into lockdown in 2020, so I was off for a few months, and that it kind of just became a little bit of a lockdown project, really. Just doing it at home and sort of trying to increase awareness. I'd written a few articles for another company that I'd put out sort of around culture and around contaminants, and I thought actually I could just start sharing this stuff myself off my own back. So it kind of initially started as a way just to sort of share a bit of information, share the articles that I'd written, and then I started to connect with a few people, and it just grew from there, really. And I mean, sort of my background it's kind of grown out of that, I think. Working in the fire service for the amount of time I have, the people I've worked with, the situations I've been involved in, and I've got a keen interest in health and safety. I'm a health and safety rep at work, so I do feel like I have a certain obligation to try and encourage people to stick to these best practices. I worked in industry for a bit. I worked in the steel industry for a little bit. Worked on blast furnaces for about 18 months. And some of the stuff that went on there was just unbelievable. Even just the environment that you're in, just some of the stuff you're exposed to just on a daily basis. I mean, we did 7 days on, 2 days off, 8-hour shifts. It was a mix of earlies, nights, and lates with sort of a quick turnaround in between your night shift and your late shift. So you'd finish at 6 a.m. off a night shift, and you'd be back in at 2 p.m. For like a 2 to 10 for 3 of them.
Yeah, I did a similar thing in a fast-moving consumer company. We did 7 till 3, and then we did 7. So we did an 8-hour day, a 12-hour day, an 8-hour night, a 12-hour night, an 8-hour night. Yeah. And it was terrible for you. It was just horrific. You just never knew where you were.
I think about it now, and I think about some of the guys that I was working with, and some of them used to do double shifts back to back. So they would do a 16-hour shift, have 8 hours off, come back in for another 16-hour shift. And you think the frequency with which some of them were doing it, what that's doing to your body, not only the lack of sleep, but being in that environment for for such a large amount of time. I mean, some of this, even just the air you would breathe, sometimes depending on the conditions of the furnace, the air was full of silica dust, and there was sulfur blowing across the work environment, the cast house floor, as they called it, from the chemicals that were coming out in the molten liquid that was coming out at the bottom of the furnace. So just the amount.
It's kind of like an excuse spectrum in my head, because if we put have you seen some of the cobalt mines and stuff like that that's going on, where they're digging out all the stuff for all these electric cars and phones and stuff like that?
I've heard of it, but I don't really know much about it.
There's a horrific book. The gentleman's name escapes me, but I'll try and find it before the end of our chat. But anyway, there's the cobalt mines, where obviously socioeconomically, government legislation is just fucking non-existent, and it's horrific. And then there's stuff in between as we move into the Western world, the examples you give of blast furnaces and different manufacturers and industries and stuff like that, where some people are cutting corners. But then hopefully you'd like to think that we in the public services, with the resources and support that we are supposed to have, should be much higher up that spectrum, even though we, as part of our job, are still exposed to some of these horrific contaminants, substances, carcinogens. You'd hope we have got the structure, the support, the intent, more than anything else, to actually reduce and manage the impact of that exposure limits over time, to an extent that is not what I believe is currently practiced.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. That thing about the sort of the resources we've got and the intent, they've definitely increased in recent years, but I still don't think they're quite enough. They're still not where they should be. I mean, a lot of it.
Saying all the right things.
Yeah, we are. Yeah, exactly that. It's kind of moving in the right direction. I think a lot of it, though, probably most of it, is still driven by the FBU. And I think maybe, it's
a bit sad, isn't it?
It is really.
Not the FBU sad, but do you know what I mean? It's sad that it has to be driven.
What the FBU
is a bit like your big brother telling you to behave yourself all the time. You should be doing it yourself by now.
What they're doing is amazing. And I dread to think where we'd be if they hadn't put all that time and money into the research that they've spent time doing and recruited some of the best professionals from around the world. If they hadn't been doing that, I think we'd probably still be where we were 10 years ago, to be honest. I think maybe the work they've done has been sort of used as a bit of a crutch for some employers to sort of think, well, this has already been done, so maybe we don't have to do as much as we would have done otherwise. But I think a lot of those recommendations that have come out of that report still haven't been implemented, nearly 3 years on. And a lot of them probably wouldn't take that much time or money to implement, really. So I think I would like to think that report is being looked at, is being studied, and people are actually taking notice of, people that are in a position of influence. I would like to think that they are looking at this and thinking, right, we've got this list in front of us. It's been done for us. We don't have to go away and work out what we need to do. We have a list that tells us what we need to do. So let's look at that list. Let's think, what can we implement from that list right now? And what can we implement from that list over the next couple of years. How much is it going to cost? How much money can we afford to put into this? If we haven't got the money for it, where can we get it from? Because it should be a priority. Your staff, the health of your staff should be the number one priority for every employer, because without your staff, you've got nothing.
100%. So let's start digging into this buffet that we've got laid before us. And I'd like, if we could, because I know you were going to take me by the hand and walk me through this, and I'll point at various things and question it as we go, because I'm very much the eternal student in this analogy for some.
Me too. I'm learning about it all the time. So I read the occasional article and whatever else, but there's so much out there, and a lot of the words in certain reports that we'll probably go through, I find myself, what does that word mean? What does that word mean? I'm having to look things up.
But that's good. That's healthy. As much as it should be a little bit simpler than that, we should encourage people to do that. So I want us to try and go through it in a sense that we are speaking to brand new recruits, because it will be beneficial for everybody, no doubt. But I don't want us to lose anybody as we try and traverse this landscape, because there will be some potholes and some places where people get lost, and we don't want them to drop off. So we're going to start with the UCLAN interim best practice report. Now, it is a colossal document, as you referred to as we're coming in. It's 134 pages, I think. But this was put together. In fact, you run us down, because there's a lovely angry picture of Matt Rack in there. But if we avoid that, give us a heads up on where we're going to go with it and where do you want to start?
Yeah. So I kind of picked a few points. Like you say, it's massive. I kind of picked a few sort of things out of it that I thought were just worth a discussion, really. I guess the first thing is some of the recommendations. So it's got recommendations for fire personnel, and then recommendations for fire and rescue services. Some of the recommendations for fire personnel are BA should be worn at all times whilst firefighting. Yeah, I'd like to think that happens anyway. This should also include during salvage and turning over activities. So once the fire's out and you're turning over, damping down, cutting away or whatever, keep the BA set on. Well, that doesn't really happen, does it?
No.
We put the fire out, take the BA off, and then we go back in. Some people might put a respirator
Just turning
on.
over and damping down tends to be a bit of a faff sometimes. Not as in we shouldn't do it, but I mean, it's people almost slip into the post-incident routine then, and people start meandering about the wreckage or the rubble, or people keep transitioning in and out of the room where the fire of origin was, and there almost seems the structure tends to relax versus when you were in the heat of the operational incident. It's something we had. I was speaking to Dr. Reich, I remember his first name, but inventor of the smoke curtain.
Oh, yeah.
Fascinating guy. His episode will come out in a few weeks. He's listed that as fascinating guy. Very well educated man. But he also spoke about the curtain acting as a physical barrier for decontamination as well.
Right. So like a barrier between like your hot zone and your sort of
your because at an incident we don't do that, do we?
No, not
really. I mean, it's kind of like, where does the stuff start? Well, there's still it's kind of here. And then you find yourself in the middle of the room, whether you're fire investigation, but also just members of the police and everything like that, just wandering in and out of areas. Whereas when they do put that physical curtain up for firefighting, but then leave it up, it almost acts as a barrier for people to go, I'm entering an area where there's a hazard. And they don't know what the hazard is as such. They know it's a myriad of whatever, but it almost acts as like, if I go past this, I should be wearing some sort of respiratory protection.
Yeah, it's a good point, actually. It's even if on a subconscious level, people are walking through, they're having to actually physically move this barrier aside. Go into that area. It might help sort of enforce that.
I think so.
And if you've put a fire out, you come out, you can't wait to get your BA set off, can you? So
no.
The last thing you want to do is put it back on again if you've got to go back in. But really, we should be. I mean, some of the stuff that is still in the air once the fire's out. You've got some of the chemicals, the toxins. You've got, in particular, carbon monoxide and hydrogen cyanide are quite common compounds to be exposed to at the scene of a fire. These two together have what you call a synergistic effect, I think, which basically means the two combined become more dangerous. And these are the things that can lead to heart attacks and strokes and cancer further down the line. So once the fire's out, the risk isn't finished. It's just slightly
that
different.
area is gassing off for ages. When I think back myself, I first joined, and you're walking owners back in, for God's sake. Do you know what I mean? And allowing them to see stuff and go, yeah, it's out now. If you want to come and have a look, and we'll talk. You thought, what are we doing?
Yeah,
what are we doing?
It should be treated with. I mean, you could argue. I think we've said before. It should be treated with the same level of caution that asbestos is treated with, because
it's a hazmat incident.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So that's why now I think, potentially we're moving towards coming out of a fire compartment. If you are heavily contaminated, consider a dry peel or whatever. Take your fire kit off. 100%. So the last thing that comes off is your face mask, which now our service has brought out some videos sort of encouraging that as a practice to be adopted at incidents and after training courses, so that you're not taking your mask off and just standing there in kit that's gassing off. You are sort of stepping away from your kit, removing your mask, and then it's getting bagged up safely and going off somewhere else, and you're not continually exposing yourself unnecessarily. I think that's the key word, is unnecessarily.
I was going to say, because there's lines between all of them. When I think about a BA team coming out and then giving me a quick debrief of what their wear was and all that sort of stuff, I don't know if it's essential that they take their mask off, but obviously they're very hot, very, very under duress sort of thing, still in that sort of zone that they were when they were in the compartment itself. So it is almost worth them. But then again, when you start derobing at that point, that's when the exposure begins. So I don't. And again, we don't want to argue over the minor points here. You want to start focus on the major aspects of it. But yeah, as soon as practically possible, you should be doing that dry peel, flash it over the top, rather than taking everything off and then dragging this horrible thing over your face and pushing it all into your skin.
Yeah, definitely. It depends what's going on, doesn't it? If you need a quick debrief off your BA team because it's an emergency situation and they need to quickly pass some information on to the subsequent team that's going in, you're going to get that debrief from them first, aren't you? Then they're going to go and take the kit off. But yeah, we all join this job voluntarily. We know the risks to a point, and nobody's forcing us to carry on doing it. But there are certain things that are well within our control. That we can get a grip of, that we're probably still not doing. A lot of it's changed, even in the last couple of years. I've noticed a massive difference. People are sort of more aware of it. Some of these practices are sort of slowly getting implemented, and you see sort of behaviour gradually changing, and people are making more of an effort. Stuff is getting cleaned after an incident. Dirty kit isn't going back in the cab all the time. So yeah, I think we're, compared to where we were when we last spoke a couple of years ago, I think there's definitely been some positive changes and some progress made.
So just some background on this report. This report is available for people through the FBU's website, isn't it?
Yes, it is, yeah.
Yeah, so this one was led by the Fire Brigade Union to commission independent groundbreaking research, and it was led by Professor Anna Steck, who I was just saying before we came on is someone I had on my list about 10 months ago. I'm still yet to have her on, but she's based at the University of Central Lancashire. That's why they call it the UCLan. And it's the link between firefighters' occupational exposure to toxic fire effluents and the cancer and other diseases that can be caused by it. So there is a load of evidence in it around the heightened risks that we face. And there's also some clear guidance to fire and rescue services across the UK and measures that they can take to sort of reduce that exposure, things being absorbed into the skin, how we extinguish it and the contamination that hang around long after that, and also the fact that we can ingest it. I still see a lot in training development departments, people snacking in between wears and in between training sessions and stuff like that. And that's a massive no-no for me. It's one of my real bugbears that we slip into because it's such a fluid environment at training and development centers. But yeah, Professor Steck and her team summarized available scientific evidence through a comprehensive literature review. It was conducted analyzing over 1,000 collected samples, and they surveyed over 10,000 firefighters. So it is a meaty piece of work. We'd suggest people go over to the FBU's website and have a look at it. So we were just going through there. You were saying some of the behavioral aspects that came out of it.
Yeah, so some more of the recommendations, they have actually done there's an article on sort of the culture and the behavioural aspects that came out of the data that they received when commissioning this report. Culture and awareness of occupational health risks among UK firefighters. So some of the questions that they were asking in this report have sort of revealed the culture within the job, really. And they asked about is the badge of honour an attitude that's still prevalent in firefighters?
It's all the goddamn pictures on social media, smoked up, isn't it?
It is, yeah, it is. And I mean, I was quite surprised. 16% of the firefighters that took part in the survey said they believe in the badge of honour culture, as in they think dirty gear is a badge of honour. 16% of 10,000 firefighters. That's a lot.
That's a lot.
To still feel like that now, that's a hell of a lot.
Well, given most shire services have around 600 to 800 members of staff, that's 1,600 firefighters. So that's at least 2 or 3 whole services worth of people.
Exactly.
With the not total, but high disregard for the effect that this image is having on their overall health.
Yeah, and when you think of it like that, it's massive. And it talked about certain correlations between sort of time in job roles, between people holding this sort of attitude. One thing that stuck out when I was reading it, it said the proportion of firefighters indicating personal belief in the badge of honour generally increased and was significantly associated with age, seniority of role, and years of service, which does make sense to a certain degree, because if you go back 20 years, this information it was really non-existent, really. Nobody was aware of it, where they maybe on a small scale, but we didn't have the awareness that we've got now. And it says managerial firefighters, i.e. crew, watch station, group area, and principal managers were 1.5 times more likely to indicate personal belief in the badge of honour compared to non-managerial firefighters. Which again, they've probably been in longer, so it makes sense. It does say that it's a very small sample, so take these figures.
But it does make sense as well, because when you think of people above watch manager level, so I'm a watch manager now, but everybody above me has their own vehicle with their own kit as well. And just this as a micro example, they'll be going to multiple incidents, going in and out. I was carrying out fire investigations in a role that I did not long ago, and we would go out with our kit, carry out fire investigation, then you'd have to go to another one, and then you'd have to go and do reports. The aspect of the nice twos and the need twos, decontamination is unfortunately something that can very quickly slip into the nice to bucket, because it has such a delayed onset of consequence. You know what I mean? I always said, and I said it with Chris Colgan, Chris is a great example, exactly, because he actually came out, I forget now, I think he came out as chief fire officer. And his frequency
was this the Hunter Apparel cleaning episode? Yeah. I actually listened to this one a few days ago.
Yeah, he's a fascinating guy, Chris is. And we've got a few more experts from that field that are going to come on, because a lot of this started in America where they did that research. But again, he only has a heightened level of this because his exposure to the content and the information through his work with the NFCC, and he was a lead for PPE during COVID and stuff like that. So his has been an accidental hybrid of information that would give him a heightened sense of awareness about his level of exposure. But most officers just wouldn't have that, because it's not a big hot fire in front of you. It's not an exposed edge that you're going to fall off. It's a secret, creeping, toxic thing that happens over time, before you see the true consequence of it. Do you know what I mean? If you ignore the edge and you slip, you're going to hurt yourself very fast. You're going to die. If you get too close, you're not wearing the right PPE, you burn yourself. It's very instant.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
It's that immediate consequence. Yeah.
Yes.
Which, funnily enough, was another thing that came out of the behavioural finding was firefighters are less likely to take safety precautions seriously, I think, if it didn't lead to an immediate consequence.
Yeah.
Because you don't see it. It's basic psychology, isn't it, really, when you think about it? And I think, it just sort of nipping back to the officers being more likely. I think it makes sense in terms of time in. They've been in the job longer, so that actually was around years ago. But if you are in these positions, you are somebody that should be setting the example for new people coming into the job. So really, I'd like to think that stereotype needs to be broken, really, because the people that are in the positions of authority, they're the ones that should be setting the example for newer people coming into the job, really. So while it's really not really surprising to read that, it's a little bit disappointing, really, I think. But like I said, it's a very small sample. So I think they said it should be taken with caution, really. Maybe it's maybe not 100% accurate reflection. But.
I'm just looking at the, I think it's page 16 on that FBU UCLan report. And I just wanted to give a bit of framework in terms of when we're talking about exposure to toxic fire effluents, there is some things that these are dependent on. And some of these are within our control, some of them aren't. So the first one they've got listed here is fire scenario, i.e. the fire conditions. Now, very little we can do about that. We are going to get tipped out to a incident that we need to attend. So there's not a lot we can do about the fire scenario. There's not a lot we can do about the fuel. And it says about the specific toxicants released during and post-fire. Not a lot we can do about what's actually involved either. But when you start to move down that list, i.e. the type, frequency, and duration of fires attended, and certainly the tactics deployed at the incident, these are the things that we can start pulling into our sphere of control. And then as it moves further down the list, certainly things about the use of personal protective equipment. So like you said, the duration, frequency, and necessity which we believe respiratory equipment is required, whether that be breathing apparatus or use of some sort of personal respirator. But then the last two, certainly for me, so hygiene facilities and practices, this is when we're getting into the weeds of behavior. And then that final one is time between contamination and the use of those hygiene facilities and practice. That for me is that big one around some of the information that you've shared around things you can do and how quickly you can put them into place. Because there is a difference between like acute and chronic toxicants and how often we're in contact with them and how they're sort of classified. So people hear carcinogens and tetragens and sensitizers and all this sort of stuff. So I just wanted to unfold that one for a second. So carcinogens are specifically substances which cause cancer, such as benzene, PHAs, PAHs and stuff like that. And tetragens are substances that can harm the fetus or exposure occurs during pregnancy. So that's specifically when we think about our female firefighters and people that are in the job. So lead components, ethylene oxides, formamides, and things like that. They're more of the concerns when it comes to sort of getting stuck in between it. But when we look at how people can actually absorb these things, so as in the exposure pathways, for want of a better description, I think that is an important one for us to go into. So as I said about ingestion, so through your gastrointestinal tract, and this is about when you're actually swallowing the toxin. People go, why would you ever swallow it? Because when we are having welfare things and stuff at the incidents, food, drink, it becomes contaminated. It becomes contaminated around those fire effluents. It's all over your hands, and you begin eating and drinking with dirty, soiled hands. And in addition to that, when the fire gases or particulates have entered our upper respiratory tract, every time we are eating and developing mucus and saliva, it's inducing that into your digestive system even further. The obvious one for everybody is inhalation. We talk about gases, vapors, mists, dust, and fibers that are released during it. And that's an easy one to think, well, we just need to be putting on BA when we're around these things. But also the heightened level that we're going to absorb that, because they've got written in the report here that normal breathing frequency at rest is 12 to 20 breaths. However, under extreme stress and circumstances where firefighters are being deployed, our normal lung capacity can metabolize up to 100 liters of air per minute.
Yeah, it's massive, isn't it?
That's huge.
The amount of things that you're going to be breathing in. If you are working on, you haven't got a BA set on, and you're ripping a ceiling down, and you're out of breath.
You're just managing hose outside. You just you think you're away from it, but you're not.
Yeah, no, exactly. You're going to be absorbing that literally 10 times the amount you would under normal circumstances. It's exactly so why you should have a BA set on if you are in that environment. It's a cultural thing, isn't it? Hopefully it will start to change, and people will start to take sort of, their ears might perk up and think, okay, next time I'm digging out at a fire, I'll stick a BA set on. You
Mm.
you might get some shit for it, but
I don't think you would. I think you'd initially get a tilted head response of, but I'm not asking you to wear BA. What is it why do you want to do that?
yeah.
You go, because there's toxins everywhere in there. There's toxins. I might feel safe going in there and doing that.
Yeah.
But also it would highlight more the requirement for healthy rotation of crews as well. Because then it actually gives you a time gap, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, boss. Yeah, absolutely. I have to go in, turn over, damping down, whatever. I'll just chuck a set on. Me and Sally, whoever, will go in and do some. We're only going to be in there for 30 minutes doing it. So we're going to get in there, we're going to get to work, and it just puts a bit more structure around it, doesn't it?
Yeah, and it's not going to be a particularly hard wear. It's not going to be anything compared to going in and putting a fire out in a hot compartment. It's going to be it's going to be a pretty relaxed wear. It's a comfort wear, basically, isn't it?
Yeah.
Which shouldn't be any kind of challenge really to do that. It's just
what? Again, though, if we throw our mind into the hazmat world, when you go into trench rescues and you go into gullies and stuff like that, or we talk about the effluent tanks where we store. When you go down, when you descend, or you lower down a gas monitor into it, it's absolutely fine. When does the danger start?
When you lower the gas monitor in, it's fine. You say.
Yeah. When does the danger start?
Well, it depends where you. I guess when you enter that environment,
it's when you start disturbing all the shit.
Yeah.
It's when you start kicking all the mess around. When you start to interfere with that debris. Even from the analogy of asbestos is one, when you start to disturb it. But when you go down there and you start to disturb waste, you start to disturb deteriorating animals and all that sort of stuff, all of that hydrogen sulfide, all of those chemicals start to come up.
Yeah.
So that's the old, if you ever read the case studies where one guy goes into the tank, suddenly becomes overcome by some substances, doesn't know why, collapses. The other guy goes down. The guy
goes in, he's overcome.
Can't smell anything.
Yeah.
But as soon as he walks over to his mate who's on the floor, by the time he gets to him, he also collapses.
Yeah.
And it's exactly that. So when we go, you go in there, turn it and damp it down. You look in the room and you go, that's all right, it smells a bit, whatever. As soon as you start turning over to damp down, you are disturbing all of this stuff. You are kicking all of that into the atmosphere and you're going to breathe it all in.
Yeah. Absolutely.
That's the big thing. It just when you break it down like that, it just seems so goddamn obvious. And then the final one is obviously we call it dermal absorption. So this occurs when a toxin comes into contact with an individual's skin. Many situations in which firefighters' skin come into contact with these harmful substances, both through direct contact, soot, touching the skin with contaminated hands, gloves, and when an area of skin is exposed to a smoky environment. The skin and our exposure level and our absorption level will vary depending on how long we're in there, the quantity and type of substance, the location of the surface of the area of the skin, the physical demands of firefighting, where we're wearing BA, the performing rescues, post-fire activities, and obviously the high temperatures, because the whole idea of getting into a sauna, you get into a sauna, your blood flow increases, you sweat more, your body temperature increases. It's no different inherently when you're wearing inside a BA job. You're getting hotter, your pores open up, and all of that shit goes pouring in.
Yeah, I think that's a big one actually, because even when you were fully kitted out in your fire kit, you're still absorbing those toxins into your skin, because there's actually currently no requirement in the UK for our PPE, for firefighters PPE, to block particulate matter. So your working rig, your duty rig underneath your fire kit becomes contaminated. That then soaks into your skin. And if you are still at the job for a while after the fire's been out, you're going to be absorbing that stuff for a lengthy period of time, which is now why they're saying, have a change of clothes with you, stick a fresh t-shirt at least in your kit bag, so you can whip that on at the job when you come out, because at the moment, there's nothing to stop your body from absorbing all those nasties, even through your fire kit and through your hood. Some services now, I think we've been looking at recently, getting particulate blocking flash hoods, because your neck and your face and your jaw is a particularly sensitive area. So I do think
a lot of glands there as well.
Yeah, exactly, and the skin's a lot thinner around there. So the sooner things like that come in, the better. I don't know where we are in terms of particular.
It's thinner and you've got more blood flow through there as well. That's why whenever you see an old person cut their face, there just seems to be, and even when you see people fighting like in the UFC or whatever, there's just profuse amounts of blood come out of the face because you've got all of those tiny little veins and stuff like that.
Yeah.
When we were talking about the types of contaminants that people are coming into contact with, I remember speaking to somebody a few weeks ago and they had an argument around, yeah, but the materials aren't as bad. Again, they reference things like asbestos and, we've got fire retardant materials and things, so it's not as dangerous as it used to be. But actually, if you look into this report again, it speaks about fire retardants. So halogenated fire retardants, these contain a lot of chlorine and bromine, and they have a proven effect in suppression of ignition. So great, the sofa, the bed, the whatever is not going to catch fire as easily as it once did, theoretically making it safer for the homeowner. But in this report, it speaks about the release rate of hydrogen bromide, hydrogen chloride, and these interfere with the gas phase free radical exchanges. So reducing the heat release, great, but typically producing more hydrogen cyanide and more carbon monoxide. So therefore, the smoke and other products are such of which they're an incomplete combustion effectively. So that really dense, thick smoke obscures escape routes and contaminates properties, and therefore the people going in them, i.e. us, far more. They're typically added at loadings of 10 or 20%. So there's so many flame retardants added to sofas and other obstacles and objects inside these compartments now, but the release rate when they do eventually catch fire is significantly higher.
Yeah, there's a lot, I think, building materials now and furniture and everything, like you say, it contains a lot more nasty stuff than it did 20, 30 years ago. So yeah, the fires we were attending, we're definitely attending less fires than we were years ago, but we're probably being exposed to more harmful compounds than firefighters were.
With the explosion of technology and plastics and everything like that as well. And even when we look at these EV vehicles and stuff like that, Jesus, the smoke and gases that comes off them things, Christ.
I did a refresher course recently, and we were looking at electric vehicles and the frequency and the unpredictability at which they can go into thermal runaway and the things you're exposed to. And I mean, for me, it was kind of an advert for why you would never want to buy an electric vehicle, to be honest. So hopefully they're not going to cause us too many issues in this job, but I imagine they're going to cause some problems at some point, just because of the unpredictability at which they're going to be involved in an incident potentially.
I'm just looking at that time in the job aspect that you were talking about there, because they've got it on, I think it's page 26. Over 4% of UK firefighters who responded to the survey have already been diagnosed with cancer. And it's got a really great little, I think you've actually put it on your Instagram at one point in time. It's got that survey respondent trend, and the highest of which being people that have been in the job 15 to 19 years, 24%. But even just after that, 20 to 24 years, 20%, 25 to 29 years, 14%. Even people 0 to 4 years are 6%. Wow, 6% more likely than a member of the public, even having only been in for less than 4 years. Jesus. That's
it's crazy, isn't it? The statistics around it are quite frightening, really. I think that's why it's important for people to take it serious. And they said the culture has kind of started to change in within the last 4 years. They said that people are starting to receive training on the harmful effects, and people that have received the training are more likely to implement the procedures. So I think that's the key, is to get that training in for new firefighters when they join, so that eventually it does become the norm. And I think that's where a lot of these recommendations in this report come into play, like the recommendations for fire and rescue services. One of them is all personnel should receive regular up-to-date training on the harmful effects of exposures to toxic fire effluents.
I'm just looking at the disease level as well, because when I heard an excuse a little while ago saying, that's because most firefighters smoke, but I think that's very much a thing of the past now. I can't think of I think I had one recruit on my last course, and that was of 12 recruits that actually smoked. And they've got in this report here as well that over 86% of UK serving firefighters say they do not smoke.
Yeah, definitely a thing of the past. That I think.
100%.
I think it reflects the general public in that way, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I think back to when I was a kid. You'd see people smoking all the time. Like, so many people smoked. Now,
if I see someone smoking in a car, I do like a double take. I think, like, really? You're doing that to your own car? It stinks.
I mean, rarely even see someone walking down the street smoking now.
I know.
So, yeah, and I don't really know many firefighters that smoke. I think on my station, with, let's say there's nearly 30 of us on my station.
There's a few vapors left, isn't there? But that's about it.
One or two smoke, yeah. Some people vape. So I do think that is becoming a thing of the past. So I don't think that, it can be attributed to that. There's too much evidence to attribute it to other things. It's definitely a factor, but I think it's a minor one in terms of the overall workforce.
So moving on to that report, and moving on from that report, but we can always jump back and go into it. Yeah, there's off the back of that, we spoke about behaviors and training and the frequency of training that we would like people to undertake. The FBU, again, is kind of a follow-up action from that. This is where all those really great images came out of the contaminants all over fire kit, and they put together a bit of a training package.
So this training came out off the back of the report. The report was an interim best practice report, so that suggests to me that they are going to bring out another one at some point, which will sort of finalise the findings and the advice, I'm guessing. But yeah, this report came out off the back of that, and it just talks about the links between cancer and firefighting in various countries, the pathways, as we've discussed, the dangers of contaminated kit, your gloves, your helmets, keeping your gloves in your helmet, which unfortunately some people still do, which was another thing to come out of this report. The amount of people that do that needs to change.
I always say gloves live in two places: on your hands or in your pockets, whether we're doing pumping, whether we're doing BA, whether we're doing anything. Do you know what I mean? Because whenever people put them down on the floor or put them in their helmets, if they're not looking and we're in a training scenario, if they put them on the floor, I'll pick them up.
Yeah,
put them somewhere else.
Then
you see them fumbling around the training yard like, I've lost my gloves gap. Like, where would I put them?
Me pocket on my leggings, or normally I've got a strap on my tunic. I'll just strap them there.
Yeah, 100%.
Stops it,
Shouldn't discard them somewhere in your helmet or on the floor or whatever. They're an essential part of your PPE. Really grinds me, that does.
Yeah, gives a brief overview of the findings. So out of 10,000 firefighters, says firefighters' mortality rate is 1.6 times higher than the general public. Also says deaths from heart attacks are 5 times the rate of the general public and 3 times the rate from strokes, which is huge. I mean, I know firefighters that have had heart attacks in the 40s, which is quite
bloody
scary,
early.
Really,
it's very young. It's less than 10 years away for us.
Yeah, it's concerning. Serving longer in the fire service increases risk of developing cancer. And contaminants are causing high rates of mental health issues, with firefighters 3 times more likely to suffer from depression and twice as likely to suffer from anxiety. I'm sure we all know people that have had those kinds of battles in the job.
Yeah, the FBU did another one about that, around the mental health aspects. They've got another report on that. I'll try and pull that up in a minute because I know it's something we discussed before we came on.
So here, I actually wanted to touch on this. It says, in light of this research, the FBU is calling on the government and fire bosses for annual health monitoring and recording of exposures for all firefighters. So the annual health monitoring, I think, is a massive one. I mean, your medical, you want to get your medical, what is it, once every 3 years? And it's not really, you don't get any kind of examination or anything like that, do you? You get a lung function, the basics, eyesight, hearing, all that kind of thing, your height and your weight. So, I mean, really,
Americans get their blood work every year.
Yeah, a lot
of them do. When I've had a few of them on the podcast, they talk about the testosterone levels and the toxic levels and things like that. And I'm like, where do you get this? They say it's part of our annual medical. They have blood work every medical.
I've got an example, actually, which I wanted to...
It's Tyne and Weir, isn't it? I've started doing it.
Tyne and Weir have just done a study. They're doing a study at the moment.
Started in February, I think.
Yeah, blood workup for firefighters. So the findings of that will be interesting. I've got a template here. It's an American one. It's a recommended firefighter physical exam and screening test. This is from a book called Surviving the Fire Service. And it's sort of a collation of various experts in different fields.
That Toddler Duck?
Yes, it is. Yes.
Yeah, he's on my list.
Together. Is it? Yeah, he'd be another one, an interesting one to speak to, definitely. So some of the suggestions. So it says annual exam, annual labs, blood pressure. Post you do your blood pressure, respiratory rate, temperature, oxygen saturation. There's a few others which we do anyway. And then it says oral, throat and thyroid exam, heart and lung exam, abdominal and testicular exam, prostate and rectal exam, fecal occult blood testing, pelvic and pap for females, vascular and neurological exams, and then behavioural health and musculoskeletal exam. We don't get any of them. We don't get any of them, do we?
No.
And so,
because I don't think we look at the counter cost. But now that mental health and physical health as well, and long-term chronic injuries and exposures are becoming such a significant cost. It sounds so horrible that we have to even wait for it to become a cost before we give it some attention, but it's just the way things go, isn't it? Yeah. Now that that's becoming such a cost, I'll bet if some smart cookie like Anna Steck or somebody, or even somebody from the FBU, quantified that, calculated it and extrapolated it over the length of a firefighter's career, the annual cost of having those tests done would be significantly less than people going off with mental health and chronic diseases.
Yeah, definitely. And you think about the cost to the NHS as well, and having to treat those things. Some of the screening tests it suggests, it says PSA begin at age 40 for prostate cancer screening, pulmonary function test every 3 years, colonoscopy begin at age 40 and perform every 5 years. So there's a few things. It's a bit of food for thought. And then again, mammograms for females begin at age 35, which is, that's young, isn't it? I'm 35. I think that if they're suggesting annual screenings like that at age 35, I mean, it's not for no reason, is it?
No.
So I think that hopefully, which I know we're going to talk about the reclassification, aren't we, of firefighting as a Group 1 carcinogen. Hopefully there will be potentially some of the things that might come out of this reclassification of the job. But so the training, it's in a very simple format, easy for people to understand. So we've got a subheading here: before the incident, number 1, clean kit regularly. Your PPE should be cleaned regularly. And after fire incidents, always cover exposed skin, use disposable gloves and wear a face mask. And even if gloves are clean, never store them in boots or helmets, because even if they appear clean, probably not that clean. And then number 2, handle data kit with care.
Do you put nitrile gloves on when you're doing general checks?
Yeah, I do actually. I have started doing that. If I'm checking the BA set,
I didn't start till I joined the department. Yeah, till I joined the training department, whatever it was, 8 months ago. I wasn't doing it. You know what I mean? And now every time it's getting into that habit. Right, I'm about to pick up a set, gloves on.
Yeah, I should have started it before I did. I probably started doing it as a matter of course, like regularly, probably a couple of years ago, something like that. So but absolutely, that's what. Even now, if I, when we're doing the inventory, the full inventory, checking all the kit, I'll stick a pair of gloves on as well, because I mean the amount of crap that you get on your hands anyway. If you don't, stick a pair of gloves on. Then we've got at the incident, BA on until the job is done, which is what we were discussing, isn't it? Wear BA all stages of firefighting, keep it on during salvage, turning over and damping down. Don't put it on too late or take it off too early. 4, contain your dirty kit, seal any clothing or PPE exposed to fire in an airtight bag or box before taking it into the appliance.
That's just going to have to be, those 2 things there are just a service recalibration about the resources required to deal with each incident, because you are going to be using more BA at a job. You are going to be using more PPE. So you either need a greater level of stock, or as we're referring to with like the hunter care packages, you need to be able to have a more efficient process of cleaning just to clean it more effectively, because before, even if you could do it quicker, which it wasn't getting the contaminants out. So you need to get a little bit slicker with the processes of turning this kit over, getting it cleaned and getting it back out there to the personnel, because I think we're going to be getting to the point where it'd be worth carrying a spare set of PPE for every firefighter on the truck. And our first thing I would get rid of is the gas tight suits, because you rarely ever use them. There still seem to be a mainstay on most appliances throughout the UK is 2 gas tight suits. Just put them on your hazard unit. You know what I mean? And then use that area, I would suggest, for spare PPE for each individual.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's plenty of space that you could do that. You could rejig stuff, and I mean, 4 sets of fire kit. They're not going to take up that much room, are they? Really?
No.
Let's face it. They'll fit in. They'll fit in one bag, and they'll fit on easily.
I bet you could even do the old vacuum pack thing.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Once you've got them at stores or wherever you have them vacuum packed, have them all sucked out. You can reuse them bags, and it's only for clean kit. You know, you're not going to put your dirty stuff in those vacuum packs. So then when you need it, you've got these similar to how you have under the seats, where you've got the re-road packs or whatever. But 4 sets of kit under there in a vacuum pack, and part of your morning checks is you put your spare kit on.
Yeah, definitely. Stick it in the bag,
food for thought,
or in the locker. Yeah. On the way back from your job, get it in a bag or a container, whatever it is, your dirty kit, and stick it in the pump locker, out of the way. Don't have it in the cab with you, and then you get your new kit on, you're on the run. So I think that's maybe an issue that a lot of firefighters will have, is we don't want to take our kit off because we'll be off the run on the way back from the job. So something,
there's a job in the city and we want to get on the run. Make us available.
We're not providing that service that we should be providing. So
Isn't it strange though that we all get issued at least 2 sets? I mean, I've got 4 sets of kit, but we've all got issued 2 sets, and we leave one at the fire station.
Yeah.
We always leave it at the fire. We just leave it in the locker.
Yeah.
It's weird. Yeah. I get it, because it's just what we've always done. But when you're going to need it is when you've got yours filthy. But historically, we've always been like, when we get back to station, we'll do it then.
Yeah, we'll do it outside. Yeah, we'll get off and do it then. I mean, you could even have some pool kit, couldn't you? You could have 4 sets of pool kit on the appliance, or a couple of sets in each size or something, so that everyone has got some, and it's there if you need it. There's a lot of people in the job, different shapes and sizes, so stick a couple of sets. The difference
is when we get to the point where we stop debating if we need to, because once we accept we need to do this, then you'll be astonished. I mean, what is it they said? Necessity is the father of invention, or something like that. I forget who said it, but it was a similar quote to that. Because once you decide you need to do this, you'll be astonished how resourceful you come. You'll come up with an answer. But at the minute, we're kind of saying, oh, well, we'll have a think about it. We'll have a think. And we're doing nothing. Not we're doing nothing. That's harsh. But we're not moving at the speed that we should be moving at, because it's still one of those, let's work on that. But if we all of a sudden, if someone imposed, a procedural from the National Fire Chiefs Council, or I don't know, FB or whatever, and said, you must X, then people will be like, all right, it'd be really expensive to start with because you genuinely haven't given it enough thought yet. But then you'd soon find a bloody solution.
Yeah, you think, right, we need to start doing this now. It's no longer optional.
Yeah, it needs to be enforced.
We'd better start doing it, yeah.
There needs to be ramifications for not doing it.
Yeah, no, I agree.
But so when we get back to the station, what we're looking at then?
At the station, so shower within an hour. It's not always realistic, is it? We're not always back within the hour. Sometimes we're still at the job an hour later. So if get the wipes out, give yourself a good clean, change your duty rig, get into a fresh set of clothes, and then shower as soon as you can. Hopefully you will be back and able to shower within an hour. I think the key thing there is just shower as soon as you can. Don't go and have something to eat first. Don't go and have a cup of tea and think, I'll have a shower in a bit. And then before you know it, you think, I'll just wait till I get home. Don't do that.
Here's a consideration for you.
You're taking it home to your family, aren't you, when you do that?
Yeah. Let me throw you a curveball, which got posed to us recently in one of our areas. We have a number of members of staff with very long hair. Now, most of these are females. And when they go back are strongly encouraged to shower. Some choose not to, which is, of course, their own personal preference. But because they're also saying, A, I don't know, I'm washing my hair all the time, but B, when I wash it, it's wet for ages. So I wouldn't be able to be redeployed back into a BA job with soaking wet hair. I'm not going to ask James to come up with a solution for that. But again, it's just another thing that if we take this seriously and we start trying to go down this rabbit hole, there will be things that we need to think about. There will be considerations, because that individual then said, can we just get issued with hair dryers on every fire station? And I was like, obviously, I'm not in the position at the rank that I would be able to facilitate something like that. But I was 100% behind that individual. I was like, yeah, absolutely. What is it? 30, 40. Yeah, say it's 100 quid, 100 quid to get a nice Dyson something hairdryer on a. Yeah, okay, let's get one in the changing area.
Well, we have pods,
if they want to use it, or just get one in the female changing rooms.
Yeah, we have pods at work. They've got every pod has got a hairdryer in the pod. You can dry your hair. So yeah,
I don't think that's a barrier. It's just something, again, someone needs to give some serious consideration to, and then just do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is, even the showering thing. Yeah, it's up to them. It's personal preference. But if you're not showering and then you're going and sitting in the mess room or whatever,
yeah,
you're contaminating. You're contaminating the. If your hair is minging and you go and sit on a recliner or whatever, you've just contaminated the chair, haven't you?
Yeah,
it makes it sound a little bit over the top, but it's true.
It is true, mate, and that's the point we need to think of it.
Well, we need to have dirty zones and clean zones in fire stations, and if you've been at a job, you will not enter this part of the fire station until you have thoroughly decontaminated yourself, because you're not just posing a risk to yourself, posing a risk to everybody else as well. And a lot of these areas and stations are public areas. We get the public coming through. We get green book staff that are now being exposed to potential
unnecessarily. It's just the layouts of stations, and then as we do start to, a lot of these stations start to become redesigned and re-engineered, and some are just built brand new now. These need to be real serious considerations about hot, warm, and cold zones, and about transitioning from the appliance bay into whatever it be, the PPE area, but then straight into the changing area and the showering, rather than having to walk down the corridor and up the stairs to the changing rooms, which is the case in some fire stations,
and even some brand new fire stations that is still in place as well. You should have, you've got your appliance room, and then sort of in the middle of the station, like you say, you've got your washroom, you've got your BA servicing area, you've got washing machines. Get your dirty kit in there. Once you've taken your dirty kit off, you put it in the washing machine, go through to the showers and have a shower and put your clean kit on. And then once you've done that, that is when you then enter the clean area of the station, which is the kitchen, the living areas, whatever else. I mean, that another thing actually that they said in this study was they even found PAHs in some kitchens on fire stations. Obviously that's as a result of cross-contamination.
Well, mate, let's be honest. That's what's happening. We're getting back. Someone's going, right, you three, and I've done it myself, so I'm guilty of it. Right, you three start hosing down the kit and start making stuff up. James, can you just go and get a brew on, mate, and let's have a pack of biscuits down, or a few rounds of toasts or whatever. And you nip upstairs, you drop your boots off, you drop your fire kit in the hallway, you run upstairs, still sweaty, still smelly. You grab a piece of toast yourself while you're making the tea, and then you bring it down for everybody else.
Yeah. Well, a few years ago, you might not even took your fire kit off. You might have just got me tunic, still got my leggings.
I've seen that when people are covering, when they're covering at a different station, and they go, "Can you just go and do this?" And it's always in the recruit, bless them, because they're not sure, and they come through with a fire kit on. They're fumbling around the station, find their way upstairs, and you walk through, and you're like, "The fuck are you doing?"
Yeah,
it says on the door, "No fire kit beyond this point." And you stood in the kitchen with your kit on. Oh, I didn't know. I was just, and it's not their fault. It's just, it's behavioural, and we've got to embed it from day one.
It's an awareness thing, isn't it? But we need to increase that level of awareness.
Yeah.
The next bit, nipping back to that, still at the station, scrub before grub. So we've already talked about that, haven't we?
Right.
Only eat a drink at the station once your clothes are clean. Exactly what we were just saying. Number 7, watch out for wear and tear. So, if your fire kit is old and knackered, as mine was recently, I got some new kit issued to me recently because my fire kit was about 13 years old.
Whoa.
And so I look at the date on I think on a pair of my leggings. They were manufactured in 2009, I think. And one set was 2009, another was 2011, I think. So I had a pair of leggings that were made before I even joined the job.
Yeah.
And so and it didn't fit me properly anymore. It was knackered. I needed some new kit. So I've had it replaced with the most up-to-date kit that we've got, which, to be honest, I think everybody should be issued anyway, because everybody should be given the highest level of protection that is available to them. So yeah, that's another thing to watch out for. And that's why it's important to send it away for cleaning, professional cleaning, because it gets assessed, or it should get assessed at the same time as when it's cleaned, to make sure that it is fit for purpose.
I'm sure you're not sure, just tick the box that says damaged. I always do. If I'm not sure, just tick it, because then it will prompt somebody to have another proper look at it. Yeah,
I'm sure we've all had fire kit come back with patches on it, where it's been repaired. Then we're on to going home, decon before you drive. So, it's an obvious one, really. Don't contaminate your car that your children and your partner sit in. Why would you want to do that? I appreciate not everyone will realise that's what they're doing, but
this is a big one for fire behaviour units across the UK as well, because I know certain services don't have their fire behaviour units at the same place as their training departments. So they will travel to a few metal containers in the middle of some farm or some industrial estate somewhere to do their fire behaviour work. And then they say, here's your lunches. You can take them with you. We've got an early finish, so you can go back and decon. But people have gone there in their own vehicles. And there isn't a laundry service available sometimes at those fire behaviour units, because they tend to be a little bit out of the way, because we don't want them right next to the public and getting complaints all the time. And it's that level there that if people can't bag up or get rid of or put their stuff in for wash at the fire behaviour training, they put it in their own car. And then they should go back to the station and say, look, go back to your station first. This is the instruction we've given you. If you choose not to do it, it's up to you. But most people, we're finishing late enough. I'm just going to get back home and then I'll take my kit in when I go on Monday. And that's what we do. And then it lives in the car all weekend, gassing off.
Yeah, it's
terrible.
It is. I've done that before. I went, had a weekend at the Fire Service College a few years ago. Wore the same kit all weekend, and then it went in my bag, and I took it home. On I think we got a coach back up, and then I went home, and it just sat in it. It wasn't an airtight bag. It was just like a duffel bag or whatever. Yeah. Just sat in the car and you in the boot or whatever, and I think now, and I think, I would never do that now. I would never do that now.
And Saturday morning, you take your kids to football, and they're like, "Oh, Daddy, car stinks." Yeah, my fire kit's in the back. Sorry.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Exactly. Number 9, clean what you carry. Mobile phone.
Oh, mate, mobile phones. When you look at them under those contaminants, cameras and stuff like that, horrific. Covered in feces and germs and all sorts of stuff.
I will give my phone a clean, actually. I'll give it a wipe, sort of. If not at the end of each shift, definitely the end of each tour. I'll give it a wipe. Normally, I'll do it sort of at the end of each shift. When I get home, I'll just give it a wipe. And it depends what I've been doing. If I've been doing stuff, I've been working, I've had it out, it's definitely getting a clean. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If I'm going to be sat on that phone having a read of something, I'm in bed, then,
Not just that, mate. Whenever you're sat by yourself, you tend to read stuff on your phone while you're eating, don't you? So you reach over, touch your phone, keep on eating. Touch your phone, keep on eating. And it's just, you just don't think about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Wash bags. If you take a bag to the fire station, give it a wash now and again. Put bags that you take to the station through the wash regularly. Wash the bags alone, then run the rinse and spin cycle after. Number 10, straight to the shower. If you couldn't shower and change at station after the last fire you attended, get straight in the shower once you get home. Don't hug, kiss, or touch anyone until you've washed and changed. That's quite a big one.
Yeah. Kids come straight over for a cuddle, don't they?
Yeah.
I dread to think what my dog has licked off my hands when I've come back from work sometimes.
You might feel mean, but it's for their it's in their best interest, isn't it?
100%. If we could see it, that's what I'm saying. If you could see it, and after they've hugged and kissed you, if you saw it on the side of their face, you'd think about it.
You would, absolutely. It gives you a different perspective.
Mm.
And the last one, number 11, dirty clothes in the machine. If you have taken home clothes that have been near a fire, put them straight into the washing machine from the bag or box they are sealed in. Don't touch these clothes with bare hands. Let them mix with other laundry or leave them lying out. After washing them, run the rinse and spin cycle. And this is a big one for me. Facilities should be made available to wash work clothes at work away from home. Not all fire and rescue services have this in place yet. That for me was a big one to come out of the report, because, like you say, your duty rig does get contaminated underneath your fire kit, and you shouldn't have to take that home and put it in your own washing machine. So now I'd like to think that fire services, if they haven't already, are investing in washing machines for staff to be able to do that, and have that option to do before you go home. I don't want to bring home smelly, smoky duty rig and put it in my own washing machine that my missus is then going to put her clothes in afterwards. Do you know what I mean? I don't want to do that. So hopefully that'll be one thing that will change, and soon.
So that takes us on to, when we talk about some of the more specific reports, there's a organization probably the right way to put it, called The Lancet. So The Lancet is effectively an online subscription service, but it's free to sign up to it, and you can access some of the latest studies and download PDFs from some of the individuals that have done some of these studies for us. So carcinogenicity, how am I going to say that? Carcinogenicity of occupational exposure as a firefighter. So in June 2022, 25 scientists from 8 countries met at the International Agency for Research on Cancer in Lyon, France, to finalize their evidence and evaluations of the carcinogenicity of occupational exposure as a firefighter. It's going to be published, volume 132, and occupational exposure as a firefighter was classified as a carcinogenic to humans, group 1, based on sufficient evidence for cancer in humans. So the working group concluded that there was sufficient evidence in humans for mesothelioma and bladder cancer. There's limited evidence in humans for colon, prostate, and testicular cancer, and for melanoma on non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. There's strong mechanistic evidence that the occupational exposure as a firefighter shows the following key characteristics of carcinogens in exposed humans. It's genotoxic, induces epigenetic alterations, and induces oxidative stress, chronic inflammation, and modulates receptor medicated effects. So there's a colossal amount of information in this report that people can go and have a look at for free. It goes into some of the PFAS evidence that we've been speaking a little bit about. So that's kind of becoming a bit more of a hot topic. Polyfluorinated substances, finding them in different materials. And there's a big thing going on in America, concerns about it being in firefighters' PPE as well, although it is in a very marginal amount, to be honest. So I don't think that PFAS will actually...
I haven't been able to find much about that in terms of UK firefighting kit. I've not really been able to find anything on sort of PFAs in firefighting gear over here, really.
No, there hasn't been very much information this side of the water about PFAS, to be honest with you. I know a lot of it came out of America. I read an article a few months ago. This was sent to me. It's from the American Council on Science and Health, and it's by a woman called Susan Goldhaber, who's a doctor in America. And she says about the height of absurdity may have been reached in the recent article about how Firefighters Union is warning its members about the health risks of per and polyfluoroalkyl substances, so PFAS, in their protective gear. We need to combat what's killing us, said union representatives. They say that the statement is equivalent to being told not to wear your seatbelt, which has saved 374,000 lives since 1975. Okay. Because they're saying, yes, there is these substances within fire kit, but the amount that adds the benefits added by fire kit far outweigh the potential negatives. Science, once again, has taken the back seat to media sensationalization. The question about the hazards of firefighting gear came from the wife of a firefighter whose husband was diagnosed with prostate cancer. She contacted a professor who reported high, not quantified levels of PFAS in protective gear, and the Firefighters Union subsequently began warning their members about the health risks associated with their PPE. Realistically, it says the firefighting is dangerous, stressful job. It's physical dangers to firefighting, blah, blah, blah. The 5 most significant health risks to firefighters are heart disease, cancer, respiratory disease, hepatitis B and C, and mental health. According to the National Institute of Occupational Safety and Health, firefighters are more than twice as likely to be diagnosed with cancer, but exposure to carcinogens comes not from the protective gear, but the chemicals in the smoke of residential and commercial fires, which is exactly what we've been speaking about here. The dose, that's a great quote. It's the dose that makes the poison. I always love that because it's true of anything in life, sugar, paracetamol, anything like that. Particularly relevant because firefighters are routinely exposed to higher levels of chemicals. Occupational controls over the past 50 years have resulted in highly reduced exposure to toxic chemicals for many, many workers. However, personal protective gear does not completely eliminate exposure, particularly in firefighting, where exposure levels are very high and firefighters often take off their PPE after an initial firefighting phase. However, many carcinogens are still present in the air. PFAS can cause cancer. So it was wrote in previous articles that PFAS is a textbook example of when misinformation gets repeated enough, it becomes mistaken for the truth. Not just for uniform public, but scientists who should know better. The scientific data does not support the statement. PFAS are one of the few chemicals that where there is more data in humans than in animals. 2 of these compounds have been studied extensively for their association to cancer, and people can find those studies. But effectively, PFAS is not something we need to be worrying about. It is something that we will see a lot more suggestive evidence about, but from what I have learned and what I can see from the studies ordered in America.
Definitely, we've got it in firefighting firms, haven't we?
Yes.
And sort of that's
so in firefighting foam, where we're going to start putting it into the environment and into the stuff that we're breathing in, it's absolutely fine. But if we use the analogy of like asbestos,
that's where the exposure is going to come from.
Yeah, if you're going to rip your fire kit open and start trying to chew on it, you might get some absorption, but it's not going to be absorbed through your skin in the same way that the things from the environment of firefighting would be, because it's simply contained within the fabric in a different way.
Yeah, that does make sense.
We spoke a little bit earlier about the mental health effects of these contaminants. I know the FBU in January 2023, this year, January 10th, they brought out some information about how this new level of education for firefighters around cancer is actually causing some real concerns. So again, they did a survey based on 10,000 firefighters across the UK, and representing almost a quarter of the UK's total population in firefighting workforce. And they said around the figure that you gave earlier, instances of cancer among firefighters between 35 and 39 is up to 323% higher, which is tremendously concerning. But then as I read further into it, so UCLAN's research, again, from the work done by Professor Anna Steg, professor in chemistry and toxicity, also exposes a link between firefighters' exposure to effluents and their mental health. 20% of respondents reported having a mental health condition. The rate of anxiety among surveyed firefighters was twice that of the general population, while the rate of depression was nearly 3 times higher than the general population. In addition to that, firefighters who noticed soot in their nose or throat for a day or more after attending incidents remained in their often contaminated protective equipment for over 4 hours. The incidents were 2 times as likely to report mental health disorders. So effectively, it's not taking on some of those behavioral considerations that we've spoken about again today, and how that is waning on people's minds, the ramifications of the actions that they're doing or failing to do.
Yeah, so you think you're saying that it's probably the awareness of it that is causing the mental health and depression, rather than something that is actually causing a reaction in the body, or do you think it's kind of a little bit of both? Because I was wondering, obviously, the awareness of it is causing depression, anxiety, but I was wondering if maybe the effect, the physiological effect it's having on the body is maybe contributing to that as well, if that makes sense. I'm not sure how that would work, but it was just a kind of I wonder if
I think it's one of those things that when you start becoming aware of it, you start worrying about it more. It's a little bit like if someone gets sick on an airplane. I don't know if you've ever seen it in some of those old movies, or we were speaking about medical TV series before we came on. I remember there was one in a House episode where someone on a plane gets sick and then someone assumes or someone starts to feel sick themselves, but so much of it was psychosomatic.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that this is psychosomatic, because obviously we are causing damage and danger to ourselves and heightening the likelihood that we'll get cancer. But now, as we increase the awareness of it, as we start to see the things that visually trigger that mental connection to the damage, i.e., like it's just said there, soot, we're blowing out soot in the shower, or you're washing your hands hours and hours later and you realize they're still absolutely filthy, or someone else references, outside the fire service, is that your clothing smells or that you smell of smoke, and then you start to become more consciously aware of it, and can make you more paranoid and anxious about the fact that, did I decontaminate properly? How long have I been walking around with this on my skin unknowingly? What am I doing to my children? That level of concern or anxiety can be very triggering now that we are starting to, rightfully so, but almost bombard people with this knowledge and education. And, the idea of getting cancer is petrifying.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think, it's maybe as well, people that have been in longer, 20 to 30 years are probably maybe worrying a little bit more, because this guidance is coming out sort of at the back end of their career, and they're maybe thinking, God, it's a little bit late for me now for this to be out. I wish this had come out 10, 15, 20 years ago. So what have I been exposed to over the last 25 years?
And when's it going to show its head? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm now being told, oh, I need to start doing this. Well, I've been doing it like this for the last 25 years. So what have I kind of been exposed to that I could?
Because again, it's not like looking back on the health or safety of scaffolders, where you go, bloody hell, I got away with it for 30 years, and you kind of go, phew. It's not like that, because that was an isolated incident. You got away with it when you were up on the roof that time.
You didn't fall off the roof. Yeah.
But now you actually did something which has a latent effect on your body. So just because it didn't hurt you then doesn't mean it's not still in there, growing, manifesting, causing your cells to adapt in ways that you don't want them to, and start to spawn some of these diseases that are going to bring your life to an abrupt end far sooner than perhaps you intended.
Definitely. I mean, I would say to people in that position, it's a shame that we couldn't have had this advice and this guidance available earlier. But I mean, even if you've been 25 years and you've got 5 years to go, it's absolutely worth making the change now, because if you don't, it could be the next 5 years that contributes to a demise. And it's well within your control to do something about that now. And even if you don't feel like it's worth doing it for yourself, do it for your family, do it for your children. You might have young kids. Curtail your exposure and their exposure by implementing some of this guidance and these practices, and do it for the people around you. Do it for your younger colleagues that have just joined the job as well, and be that example, set that example for them coming into the job now, and help them to understand why things need to change. And that it might be difficult to do that, because you are then making an admission that perhaps what you've been doing for the last 25 years wasn't the best. But if you're able to recognize that and make the change, then it might be that change that does save your life.
Off the top of your head, mate, what's the best places that you think you would direct people to, or if they wanted a bit more information, perhaps from yourself?
From myself, is the Instagram page. That's just sort of where I put everything at the moment. People interact with that, and I sort of share things on there. I share articles on there quite a bit as well now. If I read an article that I think is worth people's attention, I'll stick that on, and I'll sometimes put a little link to the article in my bio. The links on there change quite often, and try and just keep information on there up to date for people to have a look at, really. So I'd say the Instagram is the best place to go. Absolutely
love it, mate. Is there any final low-hanging fruit that you'd love to sort of re-embed from the plethora of things we've discussed today?
I wanted to touch on it. We briefly talked about women's exposure, didn't we?
Yes.
It's something that came out of the report, because it's slightly different.
Okay.
The risks are slightly different for women, and it talks about pregnant firefighters. As soon as you become pregnant as a firefighter, it's so important that you step away from operational duty, because the exposure that you're receiving is obviously affecting your unborn child, and the rate at which you absorb the chemicals has such an increased effect on the fetus. So it's so important that you sort of step away from operational duty as soon as you realise you're pregnant. And the same recommendations came out this report for breastfeeding firefighters as well. So even once you have given birth, you're not pregnant anymore, you might be desperate to get back on the run. But if you are breastfeeding, they're saying that, maybe you shouldn't rush back to operational duties, because infants can absorb some of these contaminants through breast milk. Exposure can build up for years, and then mothers can pass on that exposure through the breast milk at a much higher dose rate than they would have ever received in one go. So I think that's something for female firefighters to consider, is the speed at which they step away from operational duty, and the point at which they then return to operational duty. It's just something to bear in mind, really, and consider, because the risks are slightly different.
Higher as well. I mean, it says in the study there, the results from one study showed that nearly a quarter, so 25% of studied female firefighters' first pregnancy ended in miscarriage, compared to 10% in the general population, which is, that's 15% higher, more likelihood that you're going to result in miscarriage. Now, exposure to contaminants during pregnancy can be harmful not only to the mothers, but also to the developing fetus. The fetus is more sensitive to much lower doses of contaminants. So even if you yourself don't feel those adverse effects, the fetus itself is far, far more sensitive to really low doses. Now, contaminants, which are inhaled, ingested, and dermally absorbed, like we went over earlier, by the mother, can enter the bloodstream and expose the developing fetus and the umbilical cord. There are also more indirect harmful effects on the fetus, for example, by disrupting hormones in the mother's body, which are more important for maintaining a healthy fetal environment. Yeah, there's some seriously concerning reports in there. Fully risk-assessed procedures should be devised for the protection of pregnant firefighters. All relevant staff should be fully aware and trained in implementing these procedures during duty reassignments, adverse consequences to the pregnant firefighter safety, maternity leave, and return to work. Capture all the adjustments and considerations that may be required during the changes that take place during pregnancy. It's recommended that risk assessments are revisited. Pregnant firefighters must be reassigned to non-operational duties away from the exposure to contaminants and hazards of physical stress and exertion, noise, or heat. Every fire and rescue services needs to be aware of the risks related specifically to pregnancies during firefighting activities. Man, I completely apologize. I referenced that. I looked at it when I was in there, but you're so right. There's so much more that needs to be done.
Just remembered, I wanted to touch on that, because it is
great shout, brother. Really great
needs
shout.
To be sort of bear in mind. I think I think depending on the demographic of the firefighter, the risk can change. Another thing I sort of came to mind recently was we'd been at a job and we came back from the job and there was an on-call crew would come to standby, and a lot of the time on-call crews will wear their own clothes. They'll jump on the back of the pump, they'll be in their own clothes, and they'll go out on the job, whatever, they'll be in the back of the pump. How clean is the back of the pump? Who knows? You're potentially going to a fire in your own clothes. When they go home, they're just going back home in the same clothes. So, I would urge on-call crews to put your duty rig on before you go on a job, or at the very least, have a change of clothes in your locker so that you're not going home in those same clothes and just getting back on the sofa with your family in those same clothes that you've been out on a job in, for example. It's just another slight consideration, something that just sort of came to mind recently. Just the risks can vary, can't they, depending on where we work, what we do, what kind of job we do, what shift system we're on. Even night shift work in itself can contribute to all this. I mean, there's so many areas. Some are in our control, some are not in our control. It's just important to control the controllables, I think, isn't it? And a lot of them are within reach.
They are. So many of these things as well, like you say, just with some procedural tweaks or some environmental tweaks, you can drag these things into your sphere of control and start to put in some of those control measures. to be able to reduce both the level of exposure, the extent and time of the exposure, and also how long it stays on your body.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, dude, I know before we go, and I don't know if you're happy to talk about it, but you were, when we last spoke some time ago, in the infancy stage of hopefully putting together your own podcast, which I would love to emphatically support, celebrate, and share with people. Where are you with that?
Yeah, thank you, mate. Much appreciated. It's something I've been thinking about for a little while. I think that the page that I've got at the moment, I feel like the next progression would be to do that. So kind of I'm at the stage now where I'm looking at sort of how to put it together and the kind of people I want to have on. So what the kind of thing I want to look at is obviously a bit of a focus on health and well-being, not only in the fire service, but sort of in other occupations in industry as well. And I want to talk to people that have worked in industry, people that have worked in the emergency services, and sort of look at how we can learn from mistakes of the past, look at the way things were done, and not just look at what the way things were done and why they need to change, but also sort of be respectful of the way things used to be done, while looking at how, even though it was the way things were done, and some of it is
with the best of intentions. If they'd have known better, they'd have done better.
Exactly. And some of it is fascinating to listen to, the way things were done 20, 30 years ago. But, as we go through life and things change, it's not always appropriate to keep doing things the way we've always done it. So I'd like to invite people to get in touch with me if they want to talk about lessons learned, advice they've got for people of this generation, the next generation. What can we learn from people in the fire service, people in the emergency services, people that have worked in industry, even electricians, builders, plumbers that have been exposed to these kind of things before.
Fascinating stories everywhere, mate. Honestly,
what can we do
about
about
as people think it is? Some of the safety solutions that get implemented both by the government and other organizations often have such an incredibly fascinating story behind why that has had to happen.
Yeah, and it's amazing to listen to. A lot of it, it's not only valuable, but it's interesting as well to listen to the stories of the way things used to be. And there's a big thing now. I think recently there's been quite a hardcore vilification of the working class recently.
Yeah.
And the working class are the backbone of the country. They keep it going. And I'd quite like to highlight some of the struggles of good, honest.
Well, it's exactly what you were saying there, mate. Working in the blast furnaces and me working in food consumer goods companies. It's you have to look at some of the Instagram pages. Like there's some health and safety pages, isn't there, where you see horrific accidents.
Yeah, exactly that, and that's things that I've seen a little bit of in the past, which is kind of why another reason I'm going down this route. And I think it's important to sort of pay attention to the people in these hard, tough jobs that people are killing themselves for, and find out is there something we could be doing that would maybe give people the support they need while doing these jobs. What can we do differently that we've not been doing before, and also give people just a bit of recognition for working their ass off, really.
What are you going to call it?
I'm not sure yet. Possibly, maybe just Stoke Vent Podcast, because the whole idea of that
sense.
Sort of, Stoke Vent, it kind of stir up a conversation, and then allow the result of that to vent itself. Really, that's kind of the idea behind it. So
I like it.
Yeah. So
don't overthink it would be my advice. We said before we came on, like, we're listening back. You were episode 69. I listened back to some of the first episodes of the podcast, and I can't listen to it. The guests are amazing, but the way it's done, the way I published it, the way I sounded, the intro, it was just messy. But you've got to start somewhere. And I even like some of the biggest podcasts in the world, the JRE podcast and stuff like that.
Yeah.
They've still got their first episodes up, and it's crap. It's recorded on a laptop, and
somewhere, haven't you?
It's so disjointed. It doesn't make sense. The audio's terrible, and we all start somewhere. Yeah. So, is it worth a little bit of public accountability? Could I ask? Could I try and tease out of you when you would have the first episode out? If you said in X months, X weeks, I intend to release this one on.
Yeah, probably. I mean, I'm definitely not going to be putting them out at the rate that you're putting them out at. I'm probably going to aim when it's up and running. I might aim for one a month, something like that. So it's, it's still going to be a blog with the occasional interview with somebody. I like to think that I could be ready to put an episode out in the next 3 to 4 months, maybe something like that. I hope it wouldn't be any. I hope it wouldn't be any longer than that.
If people look on Spotify or on the Instagram page for Stoke Vent, they will be able to find a link to the podcast.
I'll say yes.
Good man. Yes, James. Get it out there, brother. And I will support you 1,000,000% in any capacity that I can. So I really appreciate it, mate. I always love having you on. So great to touch. But I know we've not had you on in 2 years, but I know we touch base on a regular basis. And I see us as raw soldiers out there on the same fight, just trying to make things a little bit better for everybody. So thank you so much for giving up a few hours on your Sunday. Please spend my love to the family, to the little ones, and to everybody on station as well.
Thanks, mate. Same to you. Thanks for having me on.
Firefighters Podcast is put together to develop, inspire, and hopefully even motivate those individuals who have chosen to serve our communities and be part of the first responder family. It's brought to you by myself, operational firefighter Pete Wakefield. If you have enjoyed today's episode and you want to see the podcast continuing, please head over to our Patreon page where you can support the ongoing efforts of the podcast. Please hit that follow, subscribe, or rate button on whatever platform you're listening to. Please support your emergency services responders, and thank you for listening.